Johnny Dodge. That doesn't sound like a rock star name. I don't know it does. Johnny and I met in, I think, 2007 when I had the very lucky opportunity to do the Gumball Rally, which was a kind of pan-European rally car race in supercars. Johnny was the head of sponsorship and PR for the Gumball Rally at the time, and one of the kind of early people of Gumball. But since that time, I've watched him kind of move on to being, frankly, an incredible entrepreneur with his fingers in lots and lots of different interesting pies. From an events business you'll hear a bit more about, to a yacht and jet charter business, frankly, to even dabbling in the, could probably call it a bit more than dabbling, in fairness, in the aviation world. His events are things like going to Antarctica or going to the Monaco Grand Prix, or actually one I went on last year with some other guests who've been on our ship before, actually went across Iceland in like off-road ice trucks. It was pretty bonkers. But one of the things I noticed when I was on that trip, and is why one of the reasons I want to have Johnny come on today, is watching how people deal with incredible amounts of stress when in these kind of very unusual and in some cases, frankly, kind of dangerous situations. So today we're going to talk about leadership under duress. And with that, welcome to this week's O Ship. Johnny, well, greetings. I'm glad you joined us from Dubai.
Hey, Freddie. Well, morning or evening from my side, but yeah, great to be on. Thanks.
It's fun. It's we're mixing it up today, doing something a little bit earlier in the day for some of our North American viewers. Already see a bunch of people joining in. As always, if you're tuned in via Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, any of the different places you may be watching, if you've got some questions for Johnny, he's a super interesting guy. Feel free to throw them in the chat. But I know you really well, Johnny, both personally and professionally. But I'd love if you could just kind of introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about some of the exciting things you do.
Well, where do I start? So yeah, I've set up a few businesses along the years, mainly around creating unique experiences. And that's been everything from the hospitality industry, from nightclubs and venues, then through to Formula One, and now on to adventures and space travel and whatever the world can offer us, I guess. But
okay, wait,
yeah.
Space. I knew about adventures. What do you mean space travel? What's a space travel venture look like in GP management land?
So we have a company called Space Experiences, and we put together unique packages as part of all of the products we do. But Space Experiences starts with astronaut training, all the way through to signing you up for Virgin Galactic or any other mission you want to take on. So I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with Richard Branson, with Elon Musk, and do some great adventures along the way. So I went astronaut training in Cape Canaveral and learned how to do the 0G, which was the maddest thing I've ever experienced, I think. So complete weightlessness.
You invited me, at one point, I don't think it was on the same trip, but there's a thing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where you can take these 727s up and they basically fly, basically at a crazy angle so that you get a 0G effect. Yeah. How terrifying was that, by the way? Because I don't even like it when there's a bump in the airplane. I'm not sure I'd want to free fall on a 727.
Ultimately, I crave that sort of stuff, right? So we're doing jet fighters, we're doing zero G flights. So that's where I'm at. So I'm obviously got my deposit down for Virgin Galactic, and I'm lucky enough to have one of the founders, Alex Tyers, my mentor along the way. So I've kind of learned a lot around that industry and many other mad ones that I've been doing. But I think that's certainly going to be an exciting industry to be involved in, and something I wanted to get into early. So we've had a lot of people come join us and start on that journey to get into space. But I mean, the physical experience itself is something else. I mean, I think there's nothing that you can really relate it to. I remember I first got weightless, you start swimming around, which clearly doesn't help you at all. But once you start realizing the physics of it and you push yourself off a wall and it doesn't stop until you hit the other wall. It's quite interesting. But yeah, you can get a little bit sick along the way as well. So there's a managed diet that you need before trying that, and quite a few tablets.
like don't eat, maybe.
Actually, no, that's not the way to do it. And in fact, you need to, if you don't eat, you're more likely to be sick. So it's a certain type of diet you need in advance. So yeah, but interesting nonetheless. And yeah, absolutely loved it, of course. And
do you have a scheduled date to go into space? Is that kind of where they're at yet? I'm not sure where the latest with Virgin Galactic is.
Well, there's very much been a change in actions at Galactic at the moment. So it's gone from a bit of a holding pattern previously, where they were just getting to the point where there were flights. Now, technically, there's commercial flights already that they're putting testing on board, etc. But now Richard will go up on the first flight, and then flights open for all the astronauts that have already signed up. And now they're contacting people, working out your suit sizes and working out when you want to come in and get everything ready to roll. So yeah, it's very much in the process of
really happening
right now.
So when I first met you, many years ago, Gumball was, for those who don't know, I think we were on the road seven days. I'm not going to say how fast we were driving, but let's say slightly over the speed limit. And it was a lot of long days, long driving. It was fun, but it was also a really hard experience, and people start to get worn down and pretty stressed down. Last, I think it was a year and a half ago, I was in Iceland in these giant trucks going across basically plateaus, and there's a massive blizzard came in, and we had a moment we were kind of freaked out. We thought we might be sleeping on the mountain, and we started to freak out a little bit. And I was with some pretty serious kind of people, buddies of mine, but serious leader type folks. And people were freaking out. People were sending, text messages to girlfriends and stuff saying, I might be stuck in the mountain. And what I think is interesting about this is it's really interesting to see how people react when they're under insane amounts of stress, and those leadership qualities kind of hold up. And maybe how someone might be strong in a boardroom is not necessarily how they might be strong in other types of situations that are more, I don't want to call them real, but let's just call them, kind of maybe physical experience, danger presents itself. I'd love to hear from you, what kind of stuff have you seen over the years? Because I've only done this twice. You do this professionally. You're doing this day in, day out, guiding groups of people, in some cases personally. I'd love to hear what you've maybe seen around leadership or with leaders in the years and years you've been doing this.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I love creating experiences that put people outside of their comfort zone. I think that nowadays, everything that people want to spend money on and enjoy is very much about an experience, not a physical product. We know that from how the industry's changed over the years. So people really value that. And so not only on the consumer side of anyone wanting to go on an adventure, of course, we look after corporates and our corporate incentive programs. So yeah, we took the executive team of Samsung up to Iceland and saw how they cope with it. We've taken CEOs to desert islands in the Pacific Ocean where we've been shipwrecked for 10 days. No food, no water, no shelter. That was certainly an adventure. I mean, I think it's so fascinating to see what happens to people in these environments, and I absolutely love it. And I mean, on the desert island, for example, we're there with these different CEOs, and that key point, what I found hugely valuable from certainly that island experience. Of course, all of the trips I do where you get cut off, where you've got no mobile phone and you're disconnected from the world, it is one learning experience all on its own. And some people manage it well, some don't, some come away with a transformational experience. So that is an incredible step on its own. But seeing how very senior people who are very, it can be in control of tens of thousands of employees, can struggle in these types of environments is certainly interesting. And and how the hierarchies get completely lost in that environment as well. So, I mean, on the desert island, what mattered was the guy that made fire and the guy that caught the food. I mean, it doesn't matter.
New hierarchies were formed pretty quickly, huh?
So you're like, but it came from nowhere, and people then wanted to create that hierarchy. And like, I managed to be the guy that made fire, and all of a sudden I was the fire guy. If something was going on with the fire, if the fire looked like it was going out, if we thought we couldn't keep it going overnight, like if we wanted to cook something on it, people would be like, Jonny, how does the fire work? And I'm like, I just made fire 5 minutes ago. I don't know any more about it than you, but people want to hierarchy in that environment. People want to understand what that means. And it's such an exciting dynamic that you can't replicate in any other environment. And we deal with billion-dollar companies and Fortune 500s that want to look at how to either do their President's Club, their big team away days, or look after their employees. And I just have to remind them that taking them to a football game or a baseball game or whatever it might be in the hospitality suite isn't the thing that's going to change your engagement with them and change the way they think about things. Taking them outside their comfort zone really is.
One thing I think you can argue with very senior folks is that there can be a certain level of confidence that maybe in some cases even be ego, and not a good one in some cases. Have you seen any of these kind of experiences, humble people or kind of impact maybe some of the bravado that maybe they come in with kind of naturally when they get put in these kind of situations?
Yeah, have I? Yeah, I mean, a global director of a very large tech company was there, who, of course, in his environment, he's the guy that can take you out, host everyone, can stand on stage in front of tens of thousands of people and can tell you everything about it. Just so proud. But that moment where you're stuck again in a similar situation to you in Iceland in a blizzard, you can't see in front of you, and then you hear on the radio, can you help us? I think we're stuck. Like, and when they're totally out of their comfort zone, when they have no comprehension of how to deal with a situation where you're in a blizzard, you've lost sight of the other vehicles around you, they can no longer see you, you don't have the GPS in your car, all you have is the radio, and you can't see any road or any markings. Like, there's not a lot of people that would be, even at very senior levels of CEOs, that would be able to make some executive decisions at that point. Like, that's just not an environment you're placed into. So it's so exciting to be able to go, right, now here's a time where I'll come take control because this is what I know, but then I'll give you that power back, because at the end of that, like, I'm always learning. Like, when I was on the desert island, I'm never the expert in these situations. I'm going with an expert, but of course, I do have a huge expertise in exploration and adventure. But sometimes that's me climbing Kilimanjaro, or sometimes that's me on a volcano in Iceland. So you've always got the local guides there that can really help. But yeah, the experiences and what I've learned over this time is just incredible. But to be able to, so when I came back from that desert island, I genuinely knew that if I ended up shipwrecked on a desert island, I could survive. And the inner power and strength that gives me is more than I could ever find in any team away days or any other I'd be taught by anyone going forward. So that's
interesting. It's like, in a world that is so we're wrapped up in our technologies and our comfort blankets of our corporate structures and these, whatever you want to call it, power dynamics that maybe, it doesn't matter whether you're high in the power ranking or low, these power dynamics are around us, all these things, that these constructs that society builds around us. I love this idea of when you strip that all away, you find potentially a true confidence that is something that is based on you and you being able to maybe interact with the only true power that we probably should respect out there, which is nature. the absolute power of the world that we all live in. That's kind of cool. I never thought about it that way. On a small side note, as you were describing this stuck in the snow, I just had this visual of when we were going through the blizzard, and one of the guys who was with me was Juan Carlos Morales, who's been a guest on the show multiple times. We could still see the trucks in front of us barely, and I remember coming across the radio. Someone goes, "By the way, there's a cliff off to the left, so don't go that way. Keep your eyes on the car in front of you." And I could just kind of see the red lights, and I was driving our truck, and I remember I had my face about this close to the wheel, and my eyes just peeking over it as I was just trying to make it through the front window. And when we finally got back, late to the hotel that night, and managed to have a very late dinner, I remember we were like, that was crazy, and the best part of the trip, because it was like, I don't think we'd ever been more excited. Our highlight was, we're live. That was awesome.
Genuinely, that's the experiences I love creating, and sometimes there's a bit of theatre in those, and sometimes not. But I think that obviously I've been through that very similar experience quite a few times, and it's genuinely life-changing. People feel, and the best stories I have are from when times that things didn't quite go right, like getting deported from Tibet and like being under armed guard for 24 hours with soldiers, and like just these things where you're like, this didn't quite go to plan, but Jesus, I learned a lot from it, so I love it.
So what of all the ventures you've done with folks and done personally, which one do you think creates the most stress for folks? And maybe it's not I'm talking about broad environment versus maybe very specific examples, if you follow me.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's about the comfort zone, and I think that it's very much like people are just used to their day-to-day lives, and trying to get them outside of that mindset. So in any environment, I'll try and create that, even in a very small way. So whether it's taking people even in the UK, and we get a British Olympian to help skipper you a yacht in Cowes Week race or something like that, you're just so far out of your comfort zone that your mind changes. And I think that's the point at which you're using. So for me, there's two elements that we focus on. There's that step which is really about the new engagement, something that's going to really change your thought processes and ideas. But the other one is about happiness and well-being, and that there's a lot of studying that I've done on that. I've spent time going to Bhutan in the Himalayas and met the king of Bhutan there. I was invited to the annual Gross National Happiness Conference they hold there. If you're not aware of how Bhutan operate, they are a kingdom that measures the wealth of their country based on the happiness of their people. So they don't measure their GDP, they measure their GNH, their gross national happiness. And sorry, I digress, but ultimately it's about understanding, doing experiences that either make you think differently, or if they do make you think differently, it genuinely makes people happier. And so we're about creating environments that make you feel better connected with the people around you, and that ultimately makes you feel happy. And I think that people sometimes forget that the end goal in life isn't money, it's happiness. And so easily and often and regularly we're distracted by that, because money has a monetary figure. It's a tangible number, whereas happiness isn't. So for me, my goal has always been about creating scenarios where it drives happiness and drives experience. I hope that answers part of your question.
No, and so we're going to get real deep here for a moment, but it's like when you think about how people get to a place of happiness, would you say that is, sometimes you could say, well, then, these experiences are about separating you from your comfort zone, but is there a period of kind of self-reflection or almost deconstruction that maybe people need, personal deconstruction that people need to go through, once they get separated from this comfort zone, that lets them get to that? Because I feel like there's just, for me anyway, I feel like there has to be some kind of period of, it could be a brief period, a moment of self-reflection where I go, I'm doing something wrong, but I know if I make this change, or I realize this thing about myself, and and there's a change that happens, and that change is what lets me find a greater sense of happiness in my life. Is that me, or or do you think other people approach it differently? And I'd love to get your reaction to that.
I mean, of course, when we're trying to be more structured and educational, especially in a corporate environment, then we'll also we'll take a professor with us. We'll take someone with us that will explain the environment. Usually you're used to doing that on a team away day where you might try and build a hut together or something. But like here, we're doing it in the most extreme environments on earth. And then when you've got this professor who's also doing the trip with you and telling you at the end of the day what you've experienced and why you think differently, of course. I mean, people learn in different ways. Some people might go for meditation, and we've had people do 14-day silent meditation retreats in the Himalayas where you don't speak or look at another human for 14 days. Like there's many different types of environments where people can reset, but I think that an active one where you can engage people like outside of the norm forces people into that environment. So they're less reflective initially. They're put outside because to be reflective is sometimes challenging for people because they've got to look inside themselves. So they might learn by going outside themselves and looking further away. And of course, by the type of things that we're doing, you're often not on your mobile phone, and you're even outside of contact with the outside world, and that gives you that time that people sometimes otherwise wouldn't choose. At a point where you're very high in adrenaline, high in testosterone, like things are really happening around you. So I think the combination of factors gives you that reflection for sure.
Mm-hmm. What was more stressful, the island or Antarctica, or something? Or is there one even more extreme in all your adventures?
Yeah, I mean, being confronted by the cannibal tribes in Papua in the remote valley of Wamena was interesting. Like, I mean, I decided to take trips around the world finding remote civilizations, and going to Chernobyl nuclear power plant, finding the way the world has never been touched, like 28 days later, like a movie around kind of, it's interesting finding how all these different things have made a big impact. But yeah, ultimately, I'm trying to find, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Go on. Tell me again your question.
I was saying, I would love to know, like, what's the most extreme environment, basically, that you personally experienced.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that Antarctica was one of my first experiences. That was the first ever tourist trip to the center of Antarctica, which was 13, 14 years ago or so. And that was really changed the way I thought about things. But since then, I've taken on more and more risky environments, but they haven't been. But I've been more familiar with the scenarios, so it's felt less unsure for me. And I've learned along the way. So when you're kind of in Rwanda, stopped by locals, and you don't know what the scenario is going to be, or when we're in Tibet under armed guard, like these types of situations, that you generally start to understand humans more and how people should interact more. And so you're under very different types of pressure at different times. And I think that's taught me. So I might end up in the strangest of environments, but I'm usually confident in them because I've confronted something that might be completely different, but learn how to challenge it. I guess it's when it's physical, though. Sometimes, you're doing a deep dive on a shipwreck, and you're not sure about your amount of air and things like that. But things when they become very physical and not dealing with other humans or other environments, you start to feel like things might be out of your control, but then you start to just take measured actions. And that's what I've learned along the way when we're up on the glacier in a blizzard, and you start to go, well, we know how this works. We can either pull everyone out in this direction or we can sit it out. But I've seen these scenarios and I can manage them. So yeah, there's been so many occasions. It's hard to place, but ultimately,
so I have to ask. Sometimes you hear people where their hobby became their job, and I can't help but wonder on some level, did your job become your hobby as well? Because you clearly love this, right? And I'm trying to figure out which one started first. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, was it the gumball thing?
I struggle to work out which one's which, to be honest. So I think that of course my passion drove this. And then you rationalize that, and then, I mean, who knew we could be selling to all these Fortune 500 tech companies experiences like this. I don't think they knew they wanted it either. And I think that that was certainly where we had a realization when I was standing in a boardroom pitching to a US tech company why they should take their executive team to Antarctica. And they all agreed with me and signed up to it. I started to go, maybe this makes sense. Maybe this is something. And all the other things don't work. And the results speak for themselves. So it started to become more and more tangible. And it came from, a big CEO of a company being like, this sounds like a load of fun, to being like, okay, well, now I need to present data against this and results. And the feedback, the stories that people tell, the way that spreads, you're never going to get that from any other experience. So I really started, when I sat in that boardroom with that or convinced all the CEOs and directors to say yes, I was like, okay, then this is a real thing now. And that had grown out of all the unique experiences we'd done in the past, but it was really.
Can you share, and I don't want to put you on the spot, and if you're not comfortable sharing this, no need, but can you give me an idea of what percentage of your business is like the kind of personal holidays or personal experiences versus the corporate side of it? Because I think that's fascinating that so many big businesses are buying it. I don't want to put you on the spot. If you can't share it, I won't take it.
Oh no, I mean, and obviously there's been a big change, as makes a lot of sense. So over the last year, no corporates have been within reason. Corporates haven't been doing experiences, and we've managed
pre-COVID. Everything gets blown up in COVID.
Exactly. So what we've done actually is converted a lot of our experiences to consumer. But previously we were very focused on the corporates, and a lot of our unique experiences, certainly on the smaller ones, then they were always wealthy CEOs of businesses. They just wanted to come on a bit of a jolly, and that was their fun trips, and that was a day trip to Champagne on a private plane. And our business model has always been around creating very high perceived value products, but delivering them cheaply in volume. So your first chance to get on a private jet, your first, these unique experiences like this, coming to Monaco Grand Prix on a super yacht. And of course, our Formula One side of the business is what kicked off a lot of this in the first place. But yes, now the majority of our business, around 70% of our business, is the corporate side of things, and those big adventures make up a big part of that. But of course, there's been big trips that we've planned for huge CEOs where it's been their passion, but then they try to involve their business. Even I can't say all the details under NDA, but I mean, we planned stuff for Elon Musk with him, and he wanted to look at involving his business in it as well at the same time. And it's great, those people that we've kind of spoken with along the way. It's always the passion of the owners and founders that then realize this is, and bring it to life in terms of what they want to do as exciting projects and adventures.
Well, so the spirit of O-Ship, and as we've talked about before many times on the show, is this kind of concept of celebrating maybe some of the more challenging things that have happened in all of our careers and our journeys. I think we've talked about. I think when you do extreme adventures and put people outside their comfort zone, you're going to end up in your fair share of O-Ship moments. But talking to you directly as an entrepreneur, 2020 was a pretty weird year. Did you learn anything big last year, or have any kind of O-Ship moments that you can share of your own personal journey as an entrepreneur and a leader?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that we've learned so much this year, and it's really progressed the business hugely and found us new opportunities. We've set up a separate yacht charter business during this time because we wanted to focus on the consumer audience before we were very much focused on the corporates. So setting up new businesses, new ventures. We're looking at exciting new projects in the UAE at the moment. We're working on a new project that wouldn't come about otherwise, which is kind of a mix of Summit, TED, Burning Man, all on a desert island of one of the sheikhs in Abu Dhabi with its own landing strip, along with giraffes, cheetahs, and a full safari. We're going to bring some global leaders together and talk about kind of the future of the world, but also fund those projects through a fund that we're working with. So that's kind of one of the projects that come out of this year. But also just learning that you don't all need to be in an office. I've been to the UK twice last year, and that's been my home for many years. So my office is on Regent Street, but at the moment, all my staff are on Zoom, and we have a global conference call with my COO in LA and my team in London, my team that are here in Dubai. That I said, look, come out. I'm here at the moment, and come travel. And we meet on Zoom calls, and of course, you're not going to match being there physically, but there's certainly been some
get a lot of work done this way. Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, it's been a great learning experience and brought some amazing opportunities. Ultimately, for me personally, I think it's been an amazing experience, and I'm so glad it's happened. And I think if people really reflect, they can probably say the same thing. I know a lot of people might jest or still talk about kind of the negatives of it.
People have definitely had a hard year, but it's been positive, transformative in a very positive way for a lot of folks. And I think actually it's a good kind of segue to wrapping up for today. But I wanted to end it on saying, if there's anyone out there who I think has really found an incredible way to find an intersection between their business and their passion and kind of living the best version of their life. And I've always thought I've been very fortunate on this front, but I think you might outrank me on this one, Jonny. You really found a way to do something that's clearly super fun, super interesting. Most people, the things that you're doing for work and the experiences you get to do and take other people on, are lifetime events for many people. And you're doing, I don't know, a dozen lifetime events a year for other folks. And I salute you and I admire you greatly. I love that you've been able to, from one entrepreneur to another, been able to really just turn this into not just a business, but a great business. So hats off to you. I'm sure all the people that are either watching live now or watch this show over the next several weeks, as we continue to promote it, will have the same impression. So respect, man.
Well, I really appreciate it, and thanks for we've kind of known each other a long time, and I really appreciate your thoughts on it. So it's great to
it's sincere, and hopefully we'll get to hang out again soon in person. So just for all of you watching, I just, as we know, this show is not something we do for money. It's just something we do for fun. But we do appreciate your support. So if you can give it a like, give it a thumbs up, share it on whatever social network you may be watching on right now. We really appreciate all the support. Tell your friends, and we hope to see you here next week on Oh Shit. Thanks again for coming, and thanks, Jonny.
Thanks, Freddie.